As Tony Robbins says, your destiny is shaped in your decisions. We ultimately come to where we are now based on a bunch of binary yeses and nos to get to where we are at. Make a freaking decision. Yes or no. The wrong decision is not to make a decision. We all get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson's famous quote is. It's what do you do after it? We are a product of our habits, not so much of our motivation and white knuckle energy. Welcome. I'm going to be walking you through an exercise that I've probably done 2 or 3 times in the past. Some of this has come from Tony Robbins. Some of it has come through my executive business coach. Some of it I've just picked up along the way. And for those of you guys who know me, I'm a pretty practical, non-emotional person. And some of this stuff really puts me out of my comfort zone personally. You could say it's a little hokey, a little bit different, but actually, at least speaking for myself for the last 10 years of my life, like following this stuff freaking works. And if you were to just play full out and just do it once in the year, ideally you want to come back and revisit these things. I think you would get a lot out of it. I think part of the exercise here is we go through together, and those of you guys who are on live, we can do a breakout room and you guys can also talk to each other a little bit, reinforce it, because that's another component of this is getting around a community. For those people coming to the retreat, we're also going to be adding on to this particular exercise. I'm also going to be recording this so that people can go through it if they want multiple times throughout the years. If you notice, when we get to the end, we're going to be deep diving into one particular goal, but you may have 2, 3, 4, 5 goals. I would say try not to have too many because then it's just too many. To kick things off, this is to get clear, get certain, get excited. We'll start with that first. Get focused, committed, momentum, and then of course those SMART goals will be buried in here. For those of you guys who have not yet downloaded the spreadsheet, this is in our public files. If you guys need a link to this later on, you can email team@thewealthelevator.com and we can send you a copy of it. But let's start with section 1 here. And before you start just typing away, again, this is really hokey. I'll call this out, but I think everybody needs to start to get into a certain state. I think I've done this, the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within seminar twice. Some people don't like it. They think it's a whole bunch of BS of you jumping up and down, yelling up, dancing. I think it's kind of dumb myself, but you know what? The thing works. So I urge everybody out there to, if you're sitting, stand up and either do a dozen jumping jacks or jump up and down 10 times. Or if you're listening to the replay of this, go and find your favorite song and go listen to it for 2 or 3 minutes and just start dancing. The main thing is getting the movement, because the movement will trigger a different perspective. And sometimes I actually do, this is what like a meditation break is supposed to be, but it's mainly to get your mind in a different state is the main thing. Because we're going to try and stuff a lot into under an hour. We really want to be primed to be in a good, positive state. After a while, you're going to start to see this happen. Go ahead, if you haven't yet, 12 jumping jacks was too easy for you to do, 12 push-ups, do some air squats. If you're a CrossFitter out there, do 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, and do that 5 times. But for some of you other guys, just do a dozen jumping jacks. Good enough. We'll move on. Hopefully you guys have maybe stopped the recording and done it later, but take note of kind of how you feel differently. First prompt here. This is to help you find clarity on where you are at right now. First thing first, what did you love in the last 12 months? I'm going to be going through this a little bit quick, but try and just write down or type out whatever comes to mind. And these things can be really simple things. I actually did this exercise recently because I heard a podcast where they interview very wealthy people. And at the end of the day, the things that make people the most happiest are the most simplest of things. Like for me these days, we don't really travel too much, because we got like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, but it's like the simple things of just going out and eating, just that time during the weekends or meeting up with an old friend. Think back to the last 12 months and try and jot down as many of those things as possible. for a lot of these things, try and get at least half a dozen things on this list. You guys can always come back and expand on it later. What were some of those magic moments that you look back on the past year and you're like, that is something I'm going to, maybe this is a little bit morbid, but when I'm on my deathbed and I can't freaking move and I'm just tired of watching Netflix because I may only live for the next month or two, if you're so lucky. Most people just go, they don't have really time to get closure. Which a mentor, they actually passed away this past year, and they had the luxury of knowing that they were going to pass away, I think, a few months. So they mentioned that it was actually very gracious for that opportunity to have that closure and to reflect. But put yourself in that mindset. What are the things that you're going to think back in this past year on? What were those magic moments? And I think later on, you come back and revisit this section and you use ChatGPT and AI to say, hey, these are things that I enjoyed this year that I actually remembered, and what are other things that are similar that I could do? That's a great way to use AI. What were things that were magical, extraordinary, serendipitous, that kind of just happened? Some of these things that I looked to trick myself into doing the right thing, certain email that came into my inbox that was normally spam that I just went with. Look for those types of instances as reinforcement to guide you in the future. Because if not, you just become an old cranky adult that always says no and doesn't do anything. We all know that's what's going to happen if you just never get out of your comfort zone and do things. Now jot down, what things did you accomplish this last 12 months? There's another exercise out there. We're not going to do here. Maybe we'll do this at the live retreat, but you record a video of you in selfie mode, talking to yourself in third party, saying, hey, Lane, here's what you did this past year. You saved this much. You lost 5 pounds. You did this. You had a kid. The kid did this. You're great, man. If you want to go as far as recording like a 3 to 6 minute long video, some of you guys probably could record a lot longer. There's so much negative self-talk. Record it and then watch it when you get bummed out. You get blue, which probably happens at least half a dozen times to most people out there. And you watch this thing. And the whole idea is you record it and you really believe it and you use it when you get down on yourself. I think that's one thing I notice. It's not the fact that you're working a plan or you get motivated certain things. It's the idea of not falling into ruts. And a quick recording of yourself, again, the prompt is, what did you accomplish this last 12 months? Can really pull you out of that stuff a lot quicker. And then finally, what are things from the last 12 months that you want to duplicate in the next year? So Tony Robbins does this idea of priming. You guys can go on YouTube and type in Tony Robbins priming to get a better sense of it. But kind of what we did in the beginning, we got ourselves in a good state. He tells you to think back on a fun moment or a time of love and relive that. And this also brings in some of the teachings of the Die with Zero book by Bill Perkins, where he says it's like the big part of doing these magical things or these fun things, creating these experiences, is you can live off of those memory dividends into the future. So you guys don't see here, but I have one of these expensive Google photo frame Nest things that constantly play the different photos. And sometimes it's like, pictures of like the past retreats. It's, oh, that was fun. And one perspective going through life is, if not for the emotions, what is it for? If you think of it like a point system like that. All right, so gave you a bunch of time with that. We're going to go a little bit faster as we go through here. The next prompt is, what did you hate in the last 12 months, right? This is maybe getting a little bit negative, but the point here is like, emotions are good. I actually think the negative emotions are actually good too, because they trigger us to do something about it. A lot of people, they want to do something different financially because they're in a crappy position. Let's face it, people don't make changes unless the motivation to change is there. So I think that's what's cool about when you finally interact with people, like we come to the retreat, people come, they get off their ass and get on a plane because they're at a crossroads in their life. And the cool thing is it's a self-selecting group that other people come with different crossroads, and everybody's very motivated to be there. What was challenging this past year for you is the next prompt. What do you not want to happen again? So this is where I think some people who get very emotional, blow off a lot of steam and come back to it, I think they have a harder time because they come back to status quo and they don't do jack about it. Where some folks are able to feel the emotions and maybe become numb, but I think that's where those people are able to do something about it because they're a lot more conscious of the signal, which is the emotion is the signal. So I'm in a group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. We do monthly small groups, forums, and we get very intimate with each other. We talk to each other about our kind of deepest, darkest secrets. Something that I wish everybody would have a part because I feel like we're all very disconnected these days. The idea is here, you tell things to these people that you don't even tell your spouse to. Some people would argue that's right or wrong. I would probably say you got to deal with this person 24/7, your spouse. So sometimes you tend not to say things to rock the boat. So what was I going with that? We always start off with a meeting on what is our emotion. And for 2 years there, I always thought that was the stupidest thing. Why would we talk about emotions? And I always joke with my folks and say, I only have one this time. You're supposed to come up with 3 every single time. But I'm like, one for me is pushing it. But then it finally clicked with me. Like the reason why you have these emotions is that you become a lot more sensitive to it. And I guess that's what part of journaling is all about. But these emotions is what, at least I made the connection, is these emotions is the cue that you should make some type of change about it. So if you're someone like me who has less emotions, there's less signals, so then I'd make less changes. That would be less advantageous for me. But if you're a highly emotional person, think of it as a positive thing. And if your spouse is an incredibly emotional person, look at the positive, right? You're stuck with them. Or you should be, but look at that as a positive thing. The third prompt here, what decisions did you make in the last 12 months that were empowering for you? Which things, and maybe you already wrote it down, just circle it, but think what were some of those empowering decisions? Because as Tony Robbins says, your destiny is shaped in your decisions. We ultimately come to where we are now based on a bunch of binary yeses and nos to get to where we are at. For those of you guys who play pinball or pachinko machines, the little bearing balls drop through the thing and either go left or right through different obstacles. That's no different than how our lives essentially are. Some decisions are a lot more important than others. Coming to retreat, for example, you meet 1 or 2 cool people, and then now your life goes in a totally different direction. I think a part of this is just getting a little bit of different stimuluses, and also going with these stimuluses is a big part of it, and being open-minded to it. But look back at what some of these decisions were in the past year. And what we're trying to do here is reinforce what has happened in the past. So you say, you know what? I felt uncomfortable in March of last year when I did this, and I did it. And dang it, it was really good for me. I'm happy that I did that thing. I think when I made the most strides in my life, I had a couple people around me that really thought this way and also pointed these things to me out, which also further created the experience of me looking for these types of decision nodes. And finally, what decisions might you make next year as a result? What are decisions on the table? Something that we'll do as a group this coming year is we always like to use each other as an unofficial board of advisors. And as I always urge people, like, you need to come with issues to process. If not, then you're not going anywhere. The ball bearing pachinko machine is just stuck there. Make a freaking decision. Yes or no. The wrong decision is not to make a decision. But I think this is the part of it where you're identifying what those decisions are. Because if you don't identify, you can't issue process. And if you can't issue process, you're not even. So that's the end of this first section there. Let's move on to step 2, which is now getting certain of where you're heading. Now, this first part is write down anything in your life that has once just a goal, a dream, or desire. What are some of the big little things that seem extremely difficult at one time or impossible to achieve or impossible to acquire? So this is, again, we're trying to reinforce that you've done this in the past. Most of our folks are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. You guys have accomplished things thus far. You guys have stuck to things and achieved things. Some people have never really gotten out of their comfort zones. Now we just have to reinforce the steps that we did to get there and have the confidence that we can repeat the process for whatever we dream of. We'll talk a little bit more about the difficulty of those dreams. Certainly, I think that separates people who transcend different financial levels and success levels. But the first step is identifying, even if it's easy goals. And that's where I think I bring in my more practicality. I think I'm a more of a conservative person, at least within my business partnerships. I'm sometimes teased that I'm the anchor, that are just too conservative. I know I need to surround myself with people who think a lot bigger than I do. And that's a good team. And whether that's how you see it with your own relationships, with your spouse, or just maybe it's also self-identify if you're the person who thinks a lot bigger than they should have. Maybe you should combo yourself with somebody who is more conservative thinking. The next thing, bold the 2 or 3 items on your list that seem the most difficult or impossible to achieve. For those items that you bolded, write down the steps you went to get to it. Of course, this is all in hindsight. You might be missing some of the micro decisions that you did throughout there. But I would certainly say focus on the initiation stages. Again, your destiny is shaped in your decisions. Once you've bolded those, take note of the following prompts. Did you focus on it continuously? Or did you revisit it on a weekly basis? Or did you have no freaking strategy at all? Just take note of it. Did you put a lot of emotional charge into it? And then what happened? Did you create a game plan, action steps? And then what steps did you go through to achieve it? Here, what we're trying to do is, I think everybody tackles different problems differently, but they also have different tendencies here. This is sort of have you be a little bit more conscious of the way that you tackle these types of things. As you wrap this up, a big part of this having goals and achieving it, Tony Robbins calls it the RPM method. Basically, it starts with the why. If you have a big enough why, it'll charge you to complete your goal. And then the strategy comes second. So an example of that, if you're trying to get more healthier, eat better, lose some weight, that's great. But what is your why? Is it to look good naked? Or is it your buddy just died because he had some type of preventable disease and now the wife is widowed and the kid is without a dad, right? If you don't want that stuff to happen, that's a pretty compelling why. So the idea here is to anchor it to a very strong why. And I think that's where in our realm, it's finances. A lot of people, they have that aha moment. And I think a lot of this comes through when you start to build relationships with each other within the group. You start to learn like where people's turning points are, whether they got passed up for a job, they got divorced and the finances were up in the air, something bad happened at work, or they just sat down for 3 months on a spreadsheet and realized that where they were heading wasn't going to get them where they want it to be. The next step here, step number 3, is now we're trying to get excited about this. We put into some ideas, our vision of how this next year is going to go. We've gotten clear how we've tackled things in the past, and now we need to have a little certainty and have the confidence. This is what confidence is, where you have with good certainty that whatever you put a goal out there and you know you can navigate your way to get there. Things will happen. We all know that. But this, to me, I think that's what a big part of confidence is all about. At least that's what I want for my kids, is they know that they can achieve something and get their way through it regardless of what happens, or find some other proxy goal along the way. Again, if you need to get back into your peak state, do some more jumping jacks, some push-ups, jump up and down. Heck, I still have a trampoline. My daughter plays with it now these days, but I actually bought that stupid thing 10 years ago because I would jump up and down on it and then get into the peak state once or twice a week, or maybe once a month. Who knows how often I use the thing. See, even I wane on this stuff after a while. But part of this is the habits, having the tools around you. In fact, today I actually just bought one of those really big glass bowls where you have 3 compartments in it, where one half of the plate is for your vegetables, and then the other 1/4 and 1/4 is for your carbohydrate and your protein. So I'm obviously really bad at portion control. When I eat one M&M, I gain 10 pounds. So this is the tools I need to do to set myself up. As a side note, if something comes to mind of something to buy, you guys got money, buy it, make it easy. That stuff is cheap. What's hard is getting you to stick to a plan and stay consistent. So buy whatever you need to make yourself successful. So getting back to in a peak state, write down every goal that you think you'd like to accomplish in your lifetime. So not only this year. So anything that you want to be, create. Maybe you want to write a book. Maybe you want to have a certain house in a certain location. Maybe you want to take all your friends to the Super Bowl. Maybe you want to have a big party and invite all the relatives. Maybe you want to be that house where everybody gathers. Those are obviously more relationship goals. But also, is it you want to change jobs? Or maybe it's more like, I want to have these types of people I work with or work for. So financial goals, personal development goals. Maybe you want to just keep up a meditation practice, download Headspace or Insight Timer. Physical goals. I'm still trying to get the elusive ring muscle up in CrossFit. I've been trying the last 10 years. I think I need to lose 10 pounds to really get it there. But that's a physical goal. Actually, this year, my buddies came over. We dared each other to go run the marathon. And I hate running, but you know what? We put that on the board and we're going to do it. It's a long time from now for me to prepare. It will be done. So sometimes that's how you have to do these types of things. Relationship goals. Maybe you and your spouse want to go to a John Gottman seminar this year. Or maybe you want to listen to my personal development podcast, Rich Life, with your spouse, or you want to share it with them. You want to read a book every quarter. Maybe you want to develop your own band of brothers of 4 or 5 guys or gals that is your unofficial board of advisors or official board of advisors. You want to develop that circle. So no matter how silly or outrageous it may seem, this is your chance to dream without limits. And while you're doing this, I think we'll do this at the retreat. We'll try and bookmark these in different eras in your life. When you're like 45 to 50 or 65 to 70, for example, because there's a time component to all of this. But for now, just keep your pen moving as fast as possible and try and jot down as much as you can. Also, things that you would like to learn. Maybe get a foreign language. things that you want to enjoy, places you want to visit, omakase you want to try. This is connected with that earlier exercise that we did, where even if it's very simple things, there's certain things that each of us like more than others. For example, some people don't give a rip about drinking a certain $300 bottle of wine. Some people really get jazzed with a $100 bottle of Camus, right? And those people will go off and do those types of experience seeking. Other people, it's totally different. Not to say anything is right or wrong here. The idea is the right thing is to find things that really resonate with you. So this is, again, building off of what we were talking about earlier. I would say take at least a few minutes here. We're going to move on. When you're finished, you go through your list, and next to each item, write down the number of years you want it to happen. Or if you're so inclined, like I said, write your remaining years left that you may be on Earth. Just put 100 and put it in a graphical form where when you would like to achieve it or have it happen. The premise there is, again, taking another principle from the Die with Zero book from Bill Perkins, is certain things that you want to achieve or experiences you want to have are not really attainable at a certain age. Like, for example, I never want to go to Coachella ever in my life. I have no need to do that. I never did that. But that time of my life has passed me by. Maybe you can't run a marathon anymore. Certain things do come up later, right? Like grandchildren. Like, that's obviously not attainable for me right now, nor would I want that, obviously. But when one door closes, like going to a 3-day EDM electric dance music festival in Las Vegas, that door closes, another one opens. Like a refreshing weekend with your spouse, the finest of Napa's wineries. All right, step 4 here is to get focus. I think you'll always build upon that list that you did. And again, another AI use case is take that list and then have it split out in those different year components, but also throw it into ChatGPT and have it suggest different ones for you to expand your list. And this is something that you can keep building upon over the years. Some of you guys have done this a couple times with me already. Probably don't want to recreate the wheel. Or if you're like me, I'm lazy, so I don't like doing the same thing twice. So I have all this stuff written down somewhere, but every time I just keep building upon it and refine it. But in step 4 here, we're going to get focus. And out of these lists of goals or experiences from the previous step, circle the ones that are your 1-year goals out of your entire list, because this is what we're going to start to focus in on. And at this point, do a kind of a sensory check on yourself. We started in a peak state. We did some exercises. Are you still at that point? Did the last exercise have this somewhat unlimited mindset where now you really feel empowered that you can do anything and the world is your oyster and you can set up your life as a canvas? Or have you waned back? And if that's the case, get moving. Get your ass up and down. Dance a little bit. Nobody's watching you. That's weird. Nobody's watching you. You're like worried about what people think about you. And everybody here's got their cameras off, right? So we're going through circling those 1-year goals that you could achieve them this year. What are the things that you would get up early for or keep you up late with excitement to achieve them? If you're going through that and it's not getting you excited to do something about it, maybe your why is not strong enough. So think of that why. Get some leverage is what they say. And again, I keep using physical fitness for this, but if I don't get my act together and stop eating as much sugar, I'll die. And shit, I don't want that, right? Okay, step 5 here is now we get committed. So for each of your 1-year goals, write a paragraph about why they are musts for you to achieve them. What are the reasons you absolutely will achieve this no matter what? Remember, reasons comes first, answers come second. Why do you want to do this? What is your why? Yeah, I've never done this exercise yet in the retreats, but there's a exercise on figuring out what your values are. And everyone's got maybe 5 or 6 that keep coming back to. I think this is when you start to talk about your why, on why you must do these types of things. Your family values really come forth through this. Again, it's a lot more deeper work on this. But a lot of this is if you've never done any type of personal development type of workbooks. A lot of this is self-reinforcing down the road. If you come to this 7 months down the road and you haven't done anything on these goals, at least you wrote down the why. And at the very least, you recognize that you're not keeping a promise to yourself, or perhaps the why was not strong enough. You need to think about it and get more leverage there. And some of this is like getting real with yourself. If again, using that example of if I don't get my act together in terms of sleep and diet, either maybe you're not confident that you can do it, or it's just a hidden fear that you just choose to ignore. In that case, your own mortality. So the next prompt here, what are some of the things that you may need to do that you don't want to do in order to achieve these goals? So if you have enough passion, you can get through anything. But first, you must be certain what anything might entail. So look the tiger in the eye, is the saying. Sometimes it's addition by subtraction. It's the idea here. Like the fitness one, it's put down the cookie. Don't get the dessert. Don't drink when everybody else is drinking. And it's just not partaking might get you to your goal. And it's tough. Sometimes not doing things like that is harder than doing things. Taking actionable action. To achieve anything, there's always 2 ways you can go about it, or 2 methods. You can go from the top down or the bottom up approach. The top down approach is your head's up here, so it's more mindset driven. So that example would be, what is the why? All right, yeah, I know I want to be here for my kids, and I want to live a long life where I don't have to walk around in a walker or wheelchair. Having that mindset will help you to make the right decisions to do certain things or not do certain things. The bottom-up approach is more the habits that you set up, the strategy, the things that you do to get to where you are. Most personal development people will tell you the why and the mindset, so the top-down approach is more important. I actually think that it's both important, because I don't discount that the mindset is everything line, but I do know that people need momentum, or at least I do. And if I can put some momentum or stack some chips in my favor or build some easy wins, that will help reinforce the mindset, and then that'll just get momentum in the direction I want. Everybody's a little bit different. Step 6 here, get a little momentum. So the idea here is never leave the site of a goal-setting session without taking some action towards its attainment. You must take immediate action. So number 1, decide now. Again, your destiny is shaped in your decisions. What is the one thing that you will do immediately towards achieving one of your goals? For example, making a phone call, booking a meeting, getting on the internet to research, signing up for a seminar, getting a coach, etc. So you guys are thinking about that. I'm going to go on Amazon and just start buying some things. Like I said, I bought that glass container with the 3 partitions. And I'm going to... I use a lot of these subscribe and save things. And I think that they kicked my bottled water off of here. I'm gonna go find some bottled water while you guys work on this. You guys think it's stupid, but this year what I'm actually gonna do is, got this from my coach. I think one of my problems is like late at night I'll have a nice dark chocolate, which is like lower in sugar, but it's still not good for me. And I barely get 120 grams of protein in every single day. Sometimes I'm like at 50 grams of protein. So I think I just need to have a protein shake ready. So I'm just gonna keep that in the fridge. And so I need a lot of crappy bottles of water. I know everybody's into the eco reusable containers, but if I put protein in there, I'll just stink and it'll just be dirty. So I'm gonna get a bunch of these wastely bottled waters. Plus I like to make my own soda water. So I bought one of those, those CO2 tanks with the homemade lines that I can use there. So I'm actually gonna buy that now. But yeah, think of one thing that you will do immediately before you leave. And then also tied in with that, depending on what your goal is, especially if it's more relationship driven, which is actually harder, I think. The relationship goals are harder than the fitness ones and the financial ones and the spiritual ones. What is the big thing that you need to resolve or do immediately to achieve this goal? Such as after you made a decision, do you need to talk to somebody? Do you make a phone call? Do you need to exit something or exit with somebody? You could also be throwing out all the unhealthy food in your house right now. Make a decision. Kind of getting to the end here. This is step 7, getting smart. So to make sure that we all follow through with this, we have to get smart and measure yourself consistently. Remember, most people set some New Year's goals and have no plan or direction. Take no action and then measure against next year's. The more you measure something, the better it gets. We must resolve now to measure our specific progress daily or at least weekly. So set up some type of measurement statistic that you'll keep doing. And keep it easy. Like I bought one of those scales and I paid for MyFitnessPal, so it records my weight automatically. So I have to write the thing down every single time. And this is where we talked about it earlier, but the RPM method, where you map something, you know what the result is, and you have a purpose for it. So in this case, you know what the goal is, you know the purpose or the why, right? The why is a big thing. And then you go with the strategy at that point. And now we're getting into the strategy part of it, which I think is the minority part of it. The biggest thing is what your freaking goal is and why do you want it? I think that's 90% of it. The side note, I did want to point out the issue with New Year's resolutions. Now, everybody gets together in January, comes up with some goals as we're doing here, and using all this emotion and motivation. And also, you get it, it's great when other people around you have the same type of movement moving forward, as opposed to the dog days of the summer. Very difficult time then. So use the momentum. But what I would caution, as discussed in the James Clear book, Atomic Habits, which is actually probably one of the best written books in the last decade. In this book, James Clear talks about habits really being the things that makes things like setting goals and achieving your vision as one of the bigger factors in this. So what does that mean? It means scheduling certain reoccurring events in your calendar, setting up events that hold you accountable. For example, signing up for the marathon, signing up for a 5K, proclaiming this as a goal, proclaiming certain things to your work and your family will only get you so far. But if you start to put the activities on your calendar or buy the right things, or essentially set yourself up to make it easy for yourselves. We are a product of our habits, not so much of our motivation and white knuckle energy, which I get it. A lot of you guys are type A performers. You guys are able to wield yourselves to great lengths be mindful of the habits. So I did want to also mention a lot of this goal setting has to really plays into having clarity and more important, the I word, having intentionality in your life. This doesn't happen unless you are able to create a space as we're doing now to really think of what is it that you want. Take a notepad and write down the hours of the day. We've done this in an earlier retreat where you detailed write down exactly what you would like to do if you had your day. Where would you want to be? Who would you like to hang out with? When would you like to eat? I did this at one time and I always wanted to go to the gym and knock off that physical fitness thing early in the day and just cruise the rest of the day. I'm not an early riser, so this usually happens around 9 a.m. to noon, somewhere in there. That was a big thing for me that I put on paper, and lo and behold, it's kind of happened and unfolded magically. Now, certain things like you living on the beach, waking up to the ocean, or sure, I think you can aspire to those types of things and you can have vacations like it, but try and detail into the themes. Sometimes it's relationships. People want to have a leisurely lunch with somebody or have dinner with their families, right? Put it to paper. I think one issue why people don't do this and why sometimes I catch myself doing the same thing is sometimes subconsciously, maybe you don't feel like you can achieve them. And if you don't put it on paper, then you never really failed. We all know a lot of people are afraid of failing, right? And even if you're conscious of it, we all do it. Look, nobody is looking at your sheet of paper as we go through this exercise. Nobody's going to see it other than you. If you're putting it on your computer, unless somebody hacks into your system, they're not going to get it. So it is somewhat of a safe space for you to put in actually whatever your heart's desire is. So some notes here. These are more advanced steps. Ensure your 1 year goals are absolutely what you must achieve in the next year. Take your 1 year goals and chunk it down into 3, 6, 9, 12-month goals. Prioritize your goals into the order you want to achieve them. Create that RPM plan and get what is the goal, why are you doing it, and what is the strategy? And apply the SMART goals. I think that's strategic, measurable, obtainable, realistic, and there's some time component to it. Another use case for AI here, you can just ask it, hey, help me fine tune my strategy here with the SMART goal methodology and the RPM method. And then have it chart shoot your progress. And something that I've picked up from coaches I paid for in the past is before a session is over or in subsequent check-ins, they always ask like, all right, in a level of 1 to 10, how confident do you think you're going to achieve your next chunked goal of this larger goal? And if a goal is chunk goal is BS to you, you're probably going to say like my confidence level is a 4. And then in that case, you need to redirect and chunk it down more. The idea is you want it to be a 7, 8, 9, or 10. Or if not, any like 9s or 10s is what you want these things to be at. The next question that a good coach will ask is, what do you think will get in your way? Right? Because we all get punched in the face, as Mike Tyson's famous quote is. It's what do you do after it? So if we can think in our head for 15 seconds, what the heck is going to stop us from getting in our way? Then we can make a plan for it now when we're in a good state. See, coming back to that, and then get even more confidence and momentum going there because it is all mere mindset. But getting back to these more advanced steps, commit and schedule. Some of you guys might be putting things into your calendar that you're committing to, or at least the check-ins, if not milestones of this goal. And then set up a way to track and measure your progress. And then 7, this is something I've added onto here is celebrate the wins along the way. Personally, I just move from one goal to the next because I'm just weird like that. But I notice a lot of people aren't like that. They like to celebrate and pat themselves on the back. And certainly if your goal is like a relationship goal where there's other people involved or at your business, at your job, you're going to need to do this so everybody's aligned and feeling good and to celebrate along the way. And also, if you're somebody who likes to buy yourself cool things from Amazon throughout the year or buy a certain car, tie those rewards to this, especially if your whys that we mentioned earlier aren't as strong. So I have a rubric on this. You guys have the spreadsheet that we're going through. The framework is on there. If you're listening to this, email us for it. And you've got to be part of the group, of course, but the way of fine tuning your plans here. Really, what we wanted to do today is just get everybody in a certain state, positive state, identify the goals, and maybe unroot some of the whys we're doing things. But as far as the strategy part, which is the minority part of this whole thing, you guys need to take a little bit more time on your own on that. And there's a big component of this that is missing, which is the community, the accountability part of it. Then the retreat will pair people up. I think we'll do a little bit of now whoever can stick past the lunch hour today, who are on the line. So like my gym is doing this thing, and I haven't decided if I'm going to do this. They call it the God Bod, and this time of year, everybody's trying to lose some weight or get healthier. And I had a bad holidays. There were a lot of good desserts. I partaked a lot. So I definitely would thinking about it, but normally I'm always an independent kind of guy, but I get it. Um, it's $75 to join. I think my big hang up is we have to go to the gym and take like naked pictures of ourselves. Of course, we cover up the private parts, but I'm not super thrilled about that. And that's my big hang up. So I got to talk to them if I don't have to do that. But the big thing there is that they put you in accountability groups. And I don't know, again, that's another hang up with me. I don't want to check in with these people every single freaking day and have a text chat. I just can't handle that because I'm just too busy. But I like the idea of you find other people along the journey and then it becomes the reason why you get close with people. You go through adversities, you succeed with each other. And then that's what's the cool thing about our family office on a mastermind is people can pair up and find ad hoc connections and help each other with that. And there's also the component of, look, I don't know you, you don't know me, we may never see each other again. So it's actually an informal coaching relationship too. And people can call each other out on BS, which is what a coach should be doing, essentially. And also ask the questions that I said. All right, how confident do you think this is? Because I'm not saying it, but I think your goals are stupid. I think it's widely unattainable and you need to chunk it down more. I'm going to ask you the questions so that you get the results that you need. Sometimes we need that from other people who at the end of the day just want to help us out. What do you think is going to go wrong? I don't know anything's going to go wrong. Here's what I think, man. You're obviously going to your cousin's house tomorrow and you're going to drink a bunch of beers. Stop doing that. Oh, I never realized, right? Like those are the conversations that happen from these like closer relationships that you go through this exercise. Yeah, great. You feel good about yourself, but without the community around you, it's hard. It is very hard. Some of us think, and again, I'm calling myself out. When I first started to invest from 2009 to 2015, I did it all by myself. I thought I was super smart. Then I started to meet other people and it started to become a lot more fun and also became a lot more successful doing it because I was able to source the best ideas, best practices from other people who were better than I was. And again, I had the old school mentality, right? I don't need a coach. I got this. I will keep to a plan, RPM the shit out of this, and it will happen. If that was the case, probably be a gazillionaire at this point, and I'm not. But it just goes to show how even the most gung ho people and people who put habits in place need some help, whether that's a coach or a community around you. A friend is great, but they don't quite keep you accountable. And spouses are great too, but they're going to rein it back in most cases because you guys have to live with each other at the end of the day. But that brings us to the end of our guided goals session. There's a little bit left time in the hour. So those of you guys who are on live, I'm going to throw you into a breakout The exercise here is to go over your one goal and for the other people to call you out on whether it is broken down in the right steps and what are some of the issues that could come up with. Make sure you talk about your big why. There's a big thing about if people talk about goals where you want to put it out there for people to hear, like on social media, if you're one of those people, right? There's some data suggests that is not a good thing to do because you got the endorphin release. You feel like you achieved the goal because you put it out there and everyone's, yeah, you're great. Yeah, you're my favorite person. And you get that endorphin, but you never achieve the freaking goal. So it's an empty win in there. So I don't know what's true. That's just the contrary of that belief. Yeah, I think that helps to bounce things off of people, especially in the beginning stages. This has been a complete Frankenstein from other methods. It's something that I personally use. And then also make sure you have a lot of goals. And I think when we went through step 6 and step 7, certainly you only went through one of those goals. So I would try and shoot for at least a couple, not more than 4 if it's your first time. And just stick to that and keep revisiting it. And then I think once you've done this several times, then you can get a little bit more audacious in doing this. All right, with that, I'll open up the breakout rooms and yeah, just hang out, go through your goal and use it to get some feedback. And for some of you guys listening to this recording, we're going to be putting this up on the website at thewealthelevator.com/goals. And also it'll be up on the YouTube channel. So feel free to revisit it when you guys want to come back and reestablish goals, maybe at least once per year. Come back and just use it as that easy walkthrough that you guys can do. Hopefully some of the prompts that I've used to trigger different types of goals out there with a relationship, financial, at your work, or spiritual goals, they're somewhat transferable. But let's say at the end of the day, it all comes down to stacking the chips in your favor. The big part is the community, right? Unless you get around other people, like-minded people going in the same trajectory as you. And that's the most important thing. The trajectory is the most important. You know, it's hard to do these types of things. And what we all tend to do, and I tend to do this myself, we all focus on things that bring us short-term gratification. And we naturally get away from things that are on the straight path to getting to achieving these goals. In essence, we're all Winnie the Pooh chasing flowers when we really should be going after the honey. So now that you all are aware of this concept, make sure you call yourself out when you're sniffing flowers and not going after the honey. The last and final tip I wanted to talk about was having a scheduled time. Again, this going back to habits. Schedule time throughout your month, quarterly, or annually to have a sit down and revisit these and course correct. As the analogy of the airplane flying over the Pacific Ocean from Seattle to Hawaii, you're very rarely pointing exactly at the place you want to be going, but you're constantly course correcting 1 degree left and 1 degree right. That's how we navigate. That's how planes navigate. And that's just how we're going to need to navigate through these goals. Now, our vision may change. We may find a proxy goal, but I think it's necessary to have these predetermined quarterly or monthly checks in. Personally, I'm in a CEO group where we get together for a full day. We turn off everything in our companies and totally get out of operations. The saying is we stop working in our business and start really working on it, at least for 8 hours straight in these meetings. Now, some people say I'm too busy. That's absurd. You can't just totally unplug in that nature. Of course, I still have my laptop and my phone with me all the time. But it took me a while to really grasp on this concept, which is getting the separation and distance to be able to think more proactively and long-term, and more importantly, creatively. To achieve difficult tasks and projects is going to require you to think outside of the box. So if you haven't yet, again, pinging back the idea of habits, put these types of reoccurring events on your scheduler now. Some would even go as far as implementing something like the Miracle Morning or a morning journaling session to course correct you through the day. personally doesn't work for me. I get a little frustrated when I'm just sitting there for 5-10 minutes meditating, journaling, where I think it's a waste of time. Who knows? I could be wrong, right? I'm constantly myself. I just can't sit straight for that. So I call myself out it. But hey, if it works for you, go ahead and adopt it. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, and each to their own. I think we're all in this journey together. We all acknowledge that we are improving together. I think that's the more important thing. And having that camaraderie of a community, also thinking the same way, is great to know that you're just not alone in this journey. So with that, today's presentation was a little bit more hokey on the spiritual side, but I do think that this is very important, especially when you blend it with a lot of the more hardcore investing, taxes, content that we talk about most of the time. This why is sometimes more important than the how to and the strategy to get there.